Call Carol Beaumont.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. Mr Speaker, I too rise to speak on Budget 2011 and in fact to oppose Budget 2011. But as the Labour List MP based in the Mangakēkera electorate, before I do that, I want to note here in the House the tragedy that occurred in the Mangakēkera electorate on Saturday the 4th of June, where an explosion took place on a work site in Onehunga at a water care project where the Hanua 4 and 3 pipelines were attempting to be reconnected. At that time, a worker on site, Philemon Gulland, was killed, and I want to extend my condolences to her family and particularly her children, who now no longer have their mother with them, and also my sincere thoughts and hopes for Ian Winson, who remains in serious condition in hospital. A number of other workers were also injured, and my thoughts are with them and their families, but also their co-workers, the people who were with them at that time and who experienced that tragedy and had to see the things that many of us would hope never to see. Local residents also were shocked and saddened by the events on Saturday the 4th of June. Can I also acknowledge the work of our emergency services? They again did a brilliant job, as they always do, and they really were fantastic. There's many questions that remain to be answered in relation to this incident, and I would just stress and acknowledge my colleague Darian Fenton, who referred to the issue of safety at work. When we go to work in the morning, our family and friends expect us to return home safely at the end of the day, and sadly for a number of workers on Saturday in Onehunga that did not happen. Now I return to the Appropriations Bill and Budget 2011, and I do rise to oppose this budget. I believe this budget is a blueprint for more borrowing, for asset sales, service cuts and economic stagnation. And after previous recessions, we've seen our economy rebound reasonably quickly. Under this one, the recovery is at best anaemic, and we are, as many commentators are saying, sitting on the edge of a double-dip recession. Now, that doesn't happen for no reason. That happens due to lack of a plan. It happens because of deliberate choices of government. And there is no plan to grow our economy, to create jobs, to invest in our people. And in fact, one of the things that always horrifies me is listening to the spin from the other side of the House. And I listened to Peseta Sam Lotuainga when he was talking about the bill that brought into place the changes to KiwiSaver and working for families. And he referred to alterations, he referred to streamlining, he referred to modifying. These were cuts. These were cuts that were being talked about. They were cuts to KiwiSaver, and in fact the bill itself talks about reductions. It talks about lower maximums. These are cuts. Now, what does that look like for struggling families, for low and middle income New Zealanders? Well, the changes to KiwiSaver mean cuts. Costs. It costs more to save for retirement. It also creates uncertainty and reduces confidence in what is an important savings scheme in our country. And we would probably all acknowledge the importance of savings. Working for Families cuts means that over 50% of families currently receiving Working for Families will get less. That is a cut. So these are some of the changes, and they put pressure on families. And families are already under pressure. It costs more to buy food. Domestic violence statistics have been going up at the same time, of course, as the government cuts funding to domestic violence services. All of these things are things that should be worrying and things that government should be doing something about. They should be offering a way forward. But in fact, this government is out of touch with ordinary New Zealanders, out of touch with low and middle income New Zealanders. In fact, we have a Prime Minister who talks about people having to go to food bank because they make poor lifestyle choices. Well, when Annette King and I visited the Salvation Army food bank in Royal Oak recently, that is certainly not what they were telling us. And they have got unprecedented demand, including from people who are in the workforce as well as those who are unemployed. So I'm saying to the Prime Minister, go and visit a food bank. and then tell us about lifestyle choices. I look forward to telling the people in the Maungakea electorate that the changes in this budget are not cuts, they're just alterations, modifications and streamlining. But that's typical National spin. This budget was, in the speech announcing it, was heralded as being about stronger and more ambitious and building our future. Building our future. Well, we won't be building anything. We will not be building anything in this country, given the skills shortages that we face, given the reduced industry training numbers, the reduced numbers in apprenticeships, and now there are further cuts in this budget. $90 million over 4 years is being cut out of industry training. 90 million over 4 years. Now this is just ridiculous. Lifting skill levels of our workforce has a number of really positive spin-off. It provides opportunities to people to get work, to progress at work, to improve their wages and get greater job satisfaction. It provides an opportunity to lift our workplace productivity, which is necessary to improve our economy and to get growth. It improves wages and conditions of work. It provides employment security, and it gives people the opportunity to change as work changes and therefore maintain employment. And investing in skill lifts our levels of literacy and education of the people in New Zealand. That has impacts on families, on individuals, on communities, on workplaces and on our economy. But this government is cutting the money that is spent on industry training, and I think that's an absolute disgrace. So what do we mean by a stronger and more ambitious New Zealand and building our future? As I said, we don't have enough skilled people, quite literally, to build our country. And there has been money invested into Christchurch, and I acknowledge that as well, as others have tonight. But the number of trainees in building and construction in this country has declined dramatically over the last 2 years. The number of people in industry training generally has declined over the last 2 years. The number of people in apprenticeships. And this is despite the need for rebuilding in Christchurch, the need for rebuilding more houses in Auckland, the need to deal with leaky buildings. And we have got less and less people training in the building and construction sector. That is a disgrace as well. There's no measures in this budget to counter that. And we continue down a path of no investment in skills and training. And I ask the question, how will we fill that gap? How will we fill the gap that we need? And I have to say that Budget 2009 and Budget 2010 were notable for the lack of new and significant initiatives in the skills area. And as I said, in Budget 2011, we now see cuts, 90 million in cuts. Business groups, unions and the wider community recognise this, but there's still no plan. And Phil O'Reilly, who is often very positive from Business New Zealand in relation to this government, says that what the government's announced so far is helpful with regard to Christchurch, but we haven't yet seen a strategy that I could discern to put my hands around it to say, OK, here it is, that's what we're going to work on. So Phil O'Reilly is saying there is no plan or no strategy around skills, and he's right. And as Peter Conway from the Council of Trade Unions says, they really should say that jobs are a priority and therefore increase skills, investment subsidy, look at skill development programs and really try and focus on getting people back into work and getting the economy moving. And when I asked the Prime Minister today about the 90 million that's been cut out of industry training and how he thought that that would help the 77,000 young people who were not in school and not in jobs and not in training, he completely failed to answer the question. And that is because there is no answer. It is an absolute shock. Once again, National has failed New Zealand and New Zealanders, and they are not serious about ensuring growth and jobs. They're not serious about lifting our skills and productivity. And this is in stark contrast to other developed countries, including our near neighbour Australia, who in their recent federal budget invested enormous amounts more, over and above
Sorry to interrupt the honourable member.
baseline
Her
than
time
we
has
have.
expired. Call Rahui Katani.